Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's get started. What's the silliest mistake you've seen a bad coworker make? Part 6. I want to take this off my chest. Electrical, elevated voltage, working in an airport. Runway lights and other equipment typically operate at 24 volts, but the source power is high voltage, 5,000 volts, and low current, 20 amps. I'd previously worked at an airport and was a recently certified journeyman. I'm aware that having specialized tools such as hot sticks for voltage detection is essential. A service transformer supplies runway lights, edge lights, and an ILS transmitter. These components are connected to cabling that is powered by a 5,000 volt service transformer. We had planned to begin our shutdown first thing in the morning, but our boss was running late 10 a.m. He's a big guy, 6'7", 340 pounds, and effing strong, having worked as an electrical foreman on high-rise slab work for 20 years as his only electrical experience. He had excellent people skills, so when he joined our company, his boss really liked him. Thus, there are no wires, bolts, HV meters, hot sticks, or connectors. He said he was gonna get everything before we begin, even though the cupboard was empty. The airport's maintenance man, or electrician, has been waiting since 7 a.m., desires to get close to the runway's main transformer. To do it, he had to give a call to another business. My supervisor wanted to make sure the transformer was truly off as they were shutting down the ILS system. Okay, no issue. However, he intended to use a CAT 2-meter Radio Shack Special, which only reached 300 volts AC. Because I was at the main power sub and he was at the runway with two apprentices nearly 3,500 meters away, he told me so over the cell phone. I had to leave the main sub to tell him that using that meter to check it was a bad idea and to ask the senior term apprentice next to him. He wasn't an A or B foreman, rather he was the highest ranking supervisor in the company, but I'm not joking. The airport administrator did not want him to return there as a passenger, let alone because he performed poorly in that role. When the airport electrician gave him the letter, I was present. And what's this? He was given a promotion. Relocated across the nation to work for the same company at another airport where he also botched up a new construction. I wasn't there. Instead, a coworker who accompanied him came back to us 8 months later and told me about it. I hope those involved skip this thread, as it was quite some time ago. I did not use names. This particular princess also messed up at least 5 other websites. I recently quit the company because they shielded him. My policy is to never work with someone again if I can't trust them at an HV site. And guess what? He's currently somewhere in Arizona. I have no idea where he went or where he is. I wish you all the best of luck. I was employed in an office, but I wouldn't say where, and one of my coworkers had left. Although he was a nice guy, his job was stressful and he wasn't very good at it. Our team leader provided him with an email template containing a spreadsheet list of his client's details a week prior to his departure. She gave him instructions to copy the email's content into a new one, edit it to say goodbye and who will be handling things going forward, and then retrieve all of the client's emails from a spreadsheet and blind copy them all in. This was intended to be sent in case they had any questions a few days prior to his departure. On his final day, he's anxious and hurries to send it, but he sends the email instead of following the directions, with the spreadsheet still attached. Even though it sounds awful, things get much worse when you learn that this spreadsheet included 800 clients' complete names, dates of birth, addresses, emails, emergency contacts, client status, some medical information, and more. Moreover, he realized what he had done and discreetly attempted to make amends. The other clients were unaware of this until a few hours later when one of them replied to the group email they were providing saying, "Hey, thanks for the update, but I don't feel great about having my info shared." My supervisor was furious when she learned, reported it right away to hire to initiate damage control. Just as one of my colleagues was about to walk out, he immediately sat back down. Safe to say that if it wasn't already his last day, he would have been fired and walked out on the spot. Though minor in contrast, during her first 3 training days, the girl they trained to take my place on first shift when I switched to third shift stole roughly $160. She was absent from management on her first 2 days, which were weekends at the hotel where I work, and we count money every day. To give her more experience with the real front desk worker tasks that don't typically occur on the first shift, but are necessary for both, they started her training with the second shift. On her first day of training, she stole $20 in fives, which was discovered when the next shift counted. The guy teaching her then mentioned the following day that it was discovered the till was short, so they're counting it extra careful this time. Then, that day, she stole $50 in the form of 2 20s and 2 5s. She was supposed to be fired on her third day because management had been called in to check the cameras and had found her both previous instances. In addition to being her first shift supervisor for the day, the manager had already whittled out her entire shift to remove them from the schedule after threatening to fire her the following day when they confronted her in front of the police. Regretfully, they called me to inform me of the situation and to ask me to notify the girl when she came in to switch shifts because the manager also blew out a tire on the way to work that morning and arrived after the girl. When this idiot asks me why she's not on the schedule, I make up a terrible casual lie, which she falls for, but for some reason she stays. When management eventually arrives and is waiting for general management to arrive as well, I change shifts to avoid the awkward situation, only to learn literally as soon as I clocked out and left, the management left the front to use the restroom and this girl stole an additional $100 or more. Then she continued to wander. It wasn't really a loss for the company because they were still able to retrieve the money by deducting one paycheck from her for the weekend, but it's still shocking that this girl had the gall to steal 3 times in 3 days when it was clearly visible to all 3 cameras that the till was getting smaller while she was working. I used to work for a shipping company, and one of my coworkers had a paint container weighing more than 3,000 pounds in the trailer. The opening in the container where he was meant to store his forklift blades was too large given the configuration of the blades. He reasoned that it would be easier to just go underneath the entire container rather than getting off the forklift and adjusting them. I have no idea what went through his mind. His blades managed to get through the bottom and deactivate the container's release valve, causing paint to spill over the dock and trailer. Rather than stuffing the valve or flipping the container right away, he drives off to fetch our damage clerk. Meanwhile, paint seeps out of the property and into a neighboring pond, as well as off the dock and into the yard during a downpour. The company has to spend almost a full week and over $500,000 cleaning it all up. He was fired immediately. What kind of negative experience have you had with a homeowners association or bad neighbors? Part 6. It was the president's desire to have a new garage that was attached to his house. In order to get his project to be allowed to disregard all of the setback rules for his garage, he had a county commissioner write a note stating that it was acceptable. Everybody believed that he was on top of things until I purchased the lot next to him during the survey. I had to pay $7,000 to defend myself against the HOA because that guy's garage was on my lot. The homeowners association filed a lawsuit against me because I attempted to enforce a rule that had been approved by one of the 3 county commissioners. Additionally, the HOA building committee did not review his garage after it was built. When I wanted the garage to be removed, the president, who was in office at the time, was the presidential brother-in-law of the president who had constructed it. This legal action against me was initiated by him. We lived in a modest condominium complex that had HOA dues that were significantly higher than average. We purchased the property at a low price, so we paid it in full, despite the fact that it did not have any amenities such as a pool or a gym. But when the HOA informed us that our dues would be going up, I couldn't help but feel a little irritated. In order to provide justification for it, they included a budget as well as a letter that detailed upcoming maintenance and upgrades. It was only natural for me to begin calculating the numbers. In addition to the fact that the numbers in the budget did not add up, the HOA could reduce the dues that are currently being paid and still meet the budget goals for the future. To put it another way, there was absolutely no justification for it. I therefore go to the first and final meeting of my HOA. The individuals were at a loss for how to create a budget, and they blamed one another for any errors that were made. It was discovered that the board members had been using the HOA account to pay for personal home repairs, and they also desired to use the account to pay for some other improvements that were not included in the budget. Despite the fact that they appeared to be insulted by the fact that someone would do math, they did ask me if I needed to be on the board. We sold the place and got the heck out of there. In contrast to what you might anticipate, the story of my HOA is a little bit different. After I'd recently purchased a condo in a charming 12-unit building, the president of the Homeowners Association HOA reached out to me and inquired about the possibility of serving as the treasurer. She advised me that everyone in the building was a slacker and would not carry out the task. I accepted, and I quickly discovered that one of the owners had a debt of more than $12,000 in dues over the course of the previous 5 years. There was yet another new owner who moved in, and he had never once paid back his bills. He had approximately $2,400 in his possession. It's easy to understand why they needed me to be on the HOA board when they have neighbors like these. A renter was moving out 3 weeks after I moved in, and they backed their U-Haul into the building, ripped off an overhang, and left a gaping hole in the siding. I was able to prevent this from happening. Despite the fact that their renter caused damage, the owner refused to pay for it. The dues for our building are only about $200, and we're a very small building. Everyone's water, sewer, and garbage bills, as well as the building's electricity and required and necessary maintenance, are covered by this total. Our dues are extremely low cost. The truth is that they ought to be higher. I didn't want to be the new guy to the building and immediately raise dues, so I refrained from doing that anyway. Despite the fact that I was able to resolve all of these issues and maintain the same financial obligations, the first year of home ownership was a very stressful experience for me. I'm aware that homeowners associations, and more specifically neighborhood HOAs, are given a poor reputation. However, my HOA is extremely important and serves a great deal of functions that are essential, and none of the other 10 owners are concerned about the building. It's just the little old lady who's the president of the HOA and me. Other times it can be very exhausting. We sued the H out of the HOA and basically bankrupted it. We forced the HOA to buy the home and pay all fees, plus a 15% increase in home value over the current market, plus an additional $100,000 in damages, and we paid full attorney's fees. This is a true story. When I was working as a paralegal, we engaged in a case against an HOA that was tyrannical. One resident had received over 125 violation tickets over the course of a year. In a short amount of time after that, the HOA was dissolved, and after that, there were approximately 50 lawsuits that were filed against various parties. Everyone involved simply continued to blame and sue other individuals. Some of the most notable aspects: over a dozen times, the plaintiff was issued a written warning for flying a flag after dusk. Federal law, not an HOA, is one that regulates flags. The plaintiff recorded himself taking down the flag every night before dark, and all of the recordings were time-stamped, including the days that were in question. Parking in an improper manner resulted in more than 30 infractions. The plaintiff, once again, took a picture of each and every time they parked. This that caused the judge to become extremely angry. And the following is a quote from one of the 44 citations for the following: "Garbage of a nature that caused odors that were distasteful to the neighborhood." I will never forget that particular one. There isn't construction on the planned addition of 50 more homes in the development, as far as I can tell, because so many homes are still for sale. A small number were foreclosed due to lawsuits, and a few were abandoned when people decided to give up and turn their property back to the HOA, which served as the bank for the mortgages. It was hilarious, but the firm got like 10 clients and made well over $1 million in fees and awards out of that development. You should keep records of everything. If you go out, have a camera pointed on where you park, etc. Any harassment at all recorded is likely to swing a judge in your favor. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're confronted with an unruly HOA, you should document everything. Seriously, get a cheap PC and hook up a 24/7 camera discreetly and keep records of everything. Always keep in mind that this particular case took place in Massachusetts, a state where homeowners associations do not have the same level of legal support as, for example, condo associations. Once you've agreed to abide by the rules of the HOA, you are in a tight spot until you're able to sell your home in certain states. Unless you can demonstrate that you've been subjected to or harassed. Everything should be documented and filmed. Recording your phone calls from the HOA is something you should seriously consider if you live in a state that permits it. If you want to watch the part 5, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again, and many thanks for support.